Hi guys, and welcome to my review for the BQEYZ Winter 2. This is the latest release from BQEYZ. Those of you that have followed me for a while now know that I am a fan of BQEYZ. I've always appreciated their products. They have a very clear and defined philosophy, and they've over the years held true to that philosophy. They are not a company where you expect to see multiple launches in a year. At most, you will probably see 2 IEMs released from BQEYZ a year, and that's basically down to the fact that they thoroughly develop their IEMs. They take their time to develop IEMs, which, in all honesty, is what I think more companies should be doing. Instead of just wanting to churn out IEMs left, right, and center, they should worry about actually making sure that whatever they are going to release is a properly designed, a properly thought out product, so that that product can have a certain longevity in the market. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I don't understand how things should be with regards to the world of electronics, but ultimately I think that would be a more sensible approach to things, as opposed to what we see happening. I mean, the number of IEMs released constantly every week, and a lot of them either with an unusual design, or they basically, it's very much copy paste. Okay, the IEMs that are now released, which are of low quality, are few. They're not a lot, but the reality is the majority of them end up being just copy paste in an attempt to be safe in terms of what people will like, and make sure that they will make some money, the companies, even if it's just for 1 or 2 or 3 months at most. When it comes to BQEYZ, I think their story is being very different. They were one of the few companies that have always developed IEMs using PZTs, and the Winter is one such IEM, and that has made sure, or has given them the ability to become, let's say, somewhat of an expert when it comes to the usage of that technology, which, when not done properly, can be disappointing to say the least. It can actually spoil what is in essence a possibly interesting or entertaining sound presentation. But anyway, enough of this ranting of mine, let's put it that way. The case, as is always the situation with BQEYZ, is very understated, nothing over the top. In the back we have some the usual details about the IEM. The one thing there that maybe you could be brought to attention to is the fact that it's got a 40 ohm impedance, but again, this is usual for BQEYZ. Inside we find this case, which, although not pocketable because of the size, it's a nice hard case, and I mean, it brings the necessary accessories in terms of the tips. I've actually left the stock tips because they do work quite well. The cable, well, actually the IEM itself, a beautifully made CNC machined shell in this green color. There's 2 options available. There's a green and there's a gray. A very nice green color. Actually, to be totally fair, it doesn't do it justice. The video doesn't do it justice. In up live, it's got this very very elegant. It just oozes a lot of elegance, this green tonality of the shell. Fits perfectly. It's got a nice weight to it. Fits perfectly in my ears. No real complaints there. And as I was saying, I'm still using the stock tips, although I did try some of the tips. The Divinus Velvet, by the way, also worked very, very well. I would probably say maybe even edging out slightly the stock tips, but for the sake of keeping things simple for this review, the difference wasn't that significant that I would say, no, you must go out and get yourself a pair of Divinus Velvet, because the truth is this, it might not work for you. Okay, in terms of the cable, nice cable again in this green tonality. The whole, I guess this has never been an issue with BQEYZ. The whole build quality, appearance of the product, everything just oozes quality, and you can see it's got an exchangeable termination, 4.4 and 3.5, and that's basically covering everything when it comes to the hardware side of things. As I said, beautiful shell. Let's see if I can focus this a little bit better, so you guys. Beautiful shell. really nice. You can see here the three holes which are responsible for the helmet's resonator that's being used inside of the IEM. And anyway, like I was saying, that's basically it when it comes to the hardware side of things. This is an IEM that costs 300 and, if memory serves me right, $329. No, $319. My apologies. So it's substantial amount of money. Inside we have the same, oh well, not the same. Let me correct that. We find a 12mm dynamic driver and an 11.6 PZT bone conduction driver. The dynamic driver is an evolution of the original driver that was used in the original Winter, which I have here, and then in the Ultra as well. So this is the latest, let's say, version of that driver, and the PZT also has been improved. On top of that, obviously, they've done the necessary adjustments to the tuning, although in essence, the tuning that we find between the three of them is not radically different. Yes, you will pick up on the differences, but I think the difference that is mainly, that you will mainly find if you have the ability to listen to all three of them, is that there has been an improvement made to the drivers inside, and that improvement has manifested itself in a more refined execution of the sound that it's reproducing. Anyway, I've got here, like I said, the Winter, the original Winter, the Winter Ultra, which was a collaboration that they do with Engineers, if I'm not mistaken. And I've also got here the Wind, which is the other IEM that BQEYZ has made, which also uses a bone conduction, but in this case a conventional bone conduction. While and I'll explain. While here the bone conduction PZT is focusing on the higher frequencies to exert its influence, over there it's focusing on the lower frequencies to take effect, to let that, you know, to place its effect on the lower frequencies of the Wind. The Wind has also got a slightly smaller dynamic driver. It's only a 12mm dynamic driver. Anyway, let's get into the sound, which is basically what we all want to know. Starting off here with the original Winter, it had a sound which was it was a very clear sound, very clean sound, very correct with the name that it has got. Okay, and these IEMs here belong all to a series of IEMs, which or a collection of IEMs known as the Season series, the Seasons collection. There's another there's another collection which is what the Wind is part of, which is the weather collection. So with that, and BQEYZ has followed this philosophy now for a few years, and I actually appreciate this. They've actually made a whole theme, and each one of the IEMs follows that theme, and it's been very well done. I mean, the marketing, everything around them has been extremely well thought out, and actually the interesting sound, interesting aspect is that even the sound that each one of these IEMs in their different models definitely is correct. I mean, just going back here to the Seasons collection, you know, if you were to listen to an Autumn, the way that the BQEYZ Autumn sounds is very much what Autumn is all about. Okay, if you listen to the Summer, the same situation. If you listen to the Spring, the same situation. So they kind of are trying to emulate what those specific seasons represent. And as I was saying when I was starting to talk about the original Winter, it was an IEM that had an extremely clean sound, but where the focus was definitely the mids, and in every single one of them the mids has always been the focus. But the original Winter was perhaps just a tad lean on the bass. Okay, just a tad cold. I mean, we are talking about an IEM. Let me just quickly just get here into the graphs so that I can better explain what I'm trying to say. So we're talking about an IEM here that had a bass gain of roughly 3 dBs more or less. Okay, so very neutral in its bass presentation, and that neutrality obviously then meant that, yes, in terms of detail and you know, you're listening to vocals in a very realistic manner and very open sounding. definitely no issues there. But on with certain genres and on occasions, even with genres where this IEM is capable of shining at, which, you know, vocal centric stuff, things like, for example, let me see here, Crown Royale by Jeanette Harris, or Dernier Dance by India, or let's see another one, Sweet Control by Emily Blue, Just Friends by Music Soul Child. These are all songs that oh, excuse me, although the Winter did it very nicely and played back those songs very nicely, I myself personally found that if it had just a little bit more energy in the bass, things would be just that extra little bit more enjoyable to listen to. And the key word here is just an extra more enjoyable. Because in no way or no, at no time did I ever find that it wasn't nice to listen to those songs in the winter. As I said earlier when I began the review, BQEYZ is a brand that very clearly defines what it wants a specific IM or specific model to do, and it hits the nail on the head always. And as I said, the Winter and the whole essence around Winter has been perfectly done when it comes to actually listening to the way that the sound that the original Winter is capable of reproducing. What they then did with the Ultra was, in essence, just give it a little bit more energy in the bass. And I'm talking about, at the very most, an extra 2 dBs, if that. But it was suffice, that extra 2 dBs placed in that area between the lowest 20, let's say just 20 hertz, and 300 hertz, that extra 2 dB boost, while keeping in the mids, upper mids, and treble very much the same, enabled the Ultra to just have then that completeness in the sound that I thought in the original, in the OG Winter was lacking, which was it just that coldness, that overly or almost overly tendency to be too clinical was complemented with this extra bass warmth, and it just made the Ultra more correct, in my opinion. It was, in terms of timbre and tonality, it was definitely more an upgrade over the original OG Winter. Enter now the Winter 2, and the Winter 2 is basically a refinement of what was done in the previous two models. So they've basically kept, or basically you know, made sure that the bass is what was before, okay, in reality, and then just polished up the mids, the upper mids and treble. There's a little extra amount of energy in that area there between 4 and 8 kilohertz, not a lot more, but a little extra energy there. The original pin again peaks a little bit more forward as well. When I show you the graphs, you'll understand what I'm saying. So it's peaking past 2K, as before in the previous two models it was peaking before 2K, 2 kilohertz. And the whole balance basically has just been improved. Okay, the bass has got that warmth that we want, or at least that I desire, that I appreciate, to complement the songs that I think the Winter 2 shines at, which is, again, like I said, jazz, anything which is it's not that it doesn't do EDM well, but let's put it this way, real music. So 80s and 90s music, pop, it just excels at that style of music. Like I was saying earlier, all of these genres that I appreciate, and that you can actually see in my Acros Ultima playlist, which I always place in my description. Carol Dubach, Brian Simpson, Chris Botti, Eugene Groove, Larry Carlton. I mean, it is absolutely magical the way that the Winter 2 is capable of giving those songs their necessary life, especially if you are a big fan of that extra clarity up top, or extra clarity in the mids, upper mids and treble. You will definitely be able to appreciate what the Winter 2 does. Bass, as I said, it's all about quality. This is by no means, although it's using a 12mm driver, but it's by no means a bass monster. Yes, there are songs like, for example, From Dusk to Dawn by George Duke, or The Little Fugue in G minor by Jacques Lassois Trio. I'm not going to deny that I prefer a little extra amount of bass energy that, for example, the Wind has. Hey, who knows? Maybe BQEYZ might come up with something where they actually join these two technologies. They have the bone conduction of the style that we have in the Wind, helping out the bass, and then complement that with a PZT driver. Who knows? Maybe somebody from BQEYZ will listen to what I'm saying and think about a possible project which incorporates both of these two technologies. That would be an interesting one to see, because the Wind, definitely in terms of bass, is the one that satisfies me the most. I'll be very frank. It's the IM that definitely has the bass that satisfies my requirements for the music that I like listening to. It's the one that is most at home with EDM, for example. While here, this is not its element. It will do it, it will play it well, but it's not its element. But on the other hand, when it comes to the upper registers, I mean, the Winter2 just it's I don't want to sound like I'm shilling or over exaggerating, but when you have the ability to compare multiple IMs, like fortunately I do, and I take time with certain IMs to really make sure that when I say something positive about them, it's the reality. The Winter2 is phenomenal when it comes to that clarity, that natural openness that it gives to vocals, and the way that instruments, guitar plucks, cymbals, everything sounds very, very good, very high level. Honestly, I've said it many times before. When you cross certain barriers of price, it becomes exceedingly difficult to justify that price, especially because what you do in terms of gains is so minute that it's hard. So when you have an IEM here like the Winter2, which is $300, obviously your expectations and what you are wanting it to do, they have to be met, because otherwise why would you spend that kind of money? And the reality is, the Winter2 definitely can play with the big boys in terms of single DDs. It can definitely go up IMs like the Twilight and even others. Okay, way more expensive, and that where to find a true justification for their price, is hard. So just one quick recap so we can carry on to the graphs and finalize this review and not keep you guys here for hours. Bass, it's in the right amount, in the right quantity. It's all about cleanliness of sound. It's not a bass that is being done or being tuned in a manner to be excessive or anything of the sort. No, it's a properly executed bass done, like I said, with the main premise being resolving, being dynamic, clean, and not over the top, not exaggerated or anything of the sort. In terms of the mids, upper mids and treble, that's where I think the Winter2 definitely does excel. It's in the vocals that it's capable of giving this natural, balanced, airy presentation, which is just, honestly, it's really nice. And that touch from the bass, it's never a bass which is overdone or excessive. It's just the right amount to make everything just sound extremely correct. Okay. In terms of the treble, this is without a doubt the PZT implementation that I've seen from BQEYZ that has been done the best. I didn't find it to be excessive or aggressive or unpolished at any point. Again, and let me make this perfectly clear, yes, I am already having certain limitations in terms of what I hear up top, but within those limitations, which is roughly about 16 kilohertz, it's the peak of what I'm capable of listening. I honestly think that this is without doubt, like I said, the best implementation of PZT from BQEYZ, and probably the best out of what I've heard of the properly tuned PZT stuff. Okay, I'm not going to compare this to the poor implementations that you often see when you see an IEM that is using PZT. PZT for improving, let's say, or adding on to the high frequencies. Technically, detailed retrieval, without question, is probably the way it excels. Detailed retrieval, micro and macro details are phenomenal. The sense of soundstage, of space, phenomenal. Imaging, incredibly good. I would even maybe dare say that this might actually be a good gaming IEM for those that might be interested, because its ability to pinpoint things and it's incredible, honestly. Timbre and tonality is perhaps, but this is a personal thing, the area where, although really good, it's not where I think it's best quality. Like I said, detailed retrieval, soundstage, imaging are without doubt, in my opinion, the Winter2's strong points. Comparing it very briefly with the previous two, it's definitely the best. Yes, I mean, we went from $239 to $279 to now $319. We're talking about $100 more than the original Winter. That is a big amount of money. I'm sure you can pick this up when it becomes more widely available, probably for a little bit less money, and maybe, who knows, even now during the 11/11 sales you might be able to find a good deal on it. But I think the price is still justified. Honestly, it is. When you see some of the other IEMs in the market of, you know, such a simple configuration, not being capable of truly justifying themselves, you know, my hat and the merit has to be given to BQEYZ, because sure, they could probably make this cheaper if they didn't give us a nice cable, if they didn't give us such a, you know, a cool case and nice tips, and fair enough, they could have maybe done it cheaper. But I'm glad that they actually made it and that they offered it at this price, because it has enough to justify that value. And you know that I'm not one that's easily persuaded to admit this. As compared to the Wind, as I alluded to earlier, the Wind does have a more well executed bass, in my opinion. It's got that extra weight of bass that I personally like. But that's basically where it ends. From there onwards, the Winter is a more capable IEM. Yes, obviously, in the Wind we are talking about a different price bracket as well, and whether or not then it is justifiable, the price difference is ultimately what you want and what you desire or what you prefer, that will be the reason for dictating the final choice. And I would say these two are perhaps more complementary to each other, because they will do different things. This for EDM and rock, I think, is the better IEM. This for classical, for jazz, for pop, I think is the more capable one. And that's it, guys. I think that's basically it. You know, once again, BQEYZ hasn't disappointed, and I'm as always very attentive and curious to see what they will launch next. And who knows? Like I said, maybe combine the two technologies here. That would be an interesting idea. Anyway, I'm going to show you now the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Okay, so let's talk now graphs. Let's see what I can, excuse me, my apologies. Let's see what I can show you here so we can get some stuff out of the way here. Okay, let's start here with the graph for the original Winter. And as you can see, very neutralish. As I mentioned earlier, the 12mm driver here was kept very restrained, was kept very low profile. Who knows, maybe they could have obtained the same sort of performance with a smaller driver, but that's neither here or there. The reality is that they implemented this 12mm driver well. They aided its performance up top with that PZT to give it a little extra air and all that you know, capability in terms of imaging and so on and so forth. But the bass was always a little bit on the lean side. They then released the Ultra, which, as you can see, it's not like there's a huge difference in terms, but this little extra 2 dBs here for the most part until about 300 Hertz is noticeable, and it did make the overall sound of the Ultra more complete, very identical here. This here was down to just the tip. because it's basically the same thing. And then now obviously the Winter 2, and as you can see, and I'll just remove the Ultra for a second here. As you can see, the Winter 2 has kept the base of the Ultra, of the Winter Ultra, delayed slightly the peak of the pinna gain. So instead of the pinna gain peak being at around 1.7, it's now being transported over to around 2.2 kilohertz, and it's given it a little bit more energy here, a little bit more detail between 4 and 8 kilohertz. The upper region as well, because of the better quality PZT, let's put it that way, has also improved. Look, guys, to keep things simple and not overcomplicated, the biggest secret of the Winter 2 is how this whole area here between let's say 2 kilohertz and whatever you can hear up to has been executed. It's got a very and fair enough, you will have to play around with the sources. The Winter 2 is a little bit sensitive to the source that you do use, but assuming that you have a source that you're obviously going to then use across with the other IEMs, the other models of the Winter, so that you get a true comparison. And that's exactly what I did. I used the Yuki, I used the Q15 from FIO, I used the M15 as well, which I still really enjoy. But ultimately the Yuki was the one that actually I ended up using the most. I could definitely pick up on the differences between the three of them, and the thing that was the most noticeable was how more polished the Winter 2 is in the upper registers. It's not a huge day and night difference, but it's a difference that becomes more noticeable, especially when you increase the volume. Especially when you go past a certain volume threshold, you notice that the Winter 2 is just got that extra little bit more elegance, let's put it that way. That a little bit more, let's say, breathing space. It doesn't sound like it's on the limit. It doesn't sound like it's strained. I think that's the best way that I can actually explain or put what I'm trying to say. And then just for the sake of comparison, I've got here, like I mentioned, the wind, and let me just quickly take away the Winter. The wind, as you can see, also again very much that BQEYZ sound. Bass very nicely done, not overly boosted, so to keep a nice balance between that and then the mids and the upper mids. Great extension at the very end, undeniable. But when I actually put it with the Winter 2, I think the thing that jumps out is the wind, better bass, although graphically or on looking at it this way, you'd think it's about the same bass. One is a 12mm, the other one is a 10. No, the wind has got a more fuller bass in my opinion, and definitely the bone conduction, the more traditional style of bone conduction, is definitely doing its thing there. But then it lacks in the way that the upper end is done. It just sounds more rough around the edges. Okay, I don't want to sound like I'm being harsh, because I mean the wind is a phenomenal IEM in its own right. But when I compare it with the Winter is the gentleman, let's put it that way, while the wind is more the young stud, full of energy. I think that's the most correct manner of putting it. And that's basically it, guys. I really don't have any much more to say about the Winter 2. Really, I mean, phenomenally well built, good accessories package, and the sound. If what you're looking for is a sound which, for example, is let's say close to something like, or along the lines of something like for example, the Tansium Fission, which is more vocal focused, but has got the right amount of energy in terms of the bass and quality to complement that part of the spectrum where it does shine, where it does, then definitely you will not be disappointed with the Winter 2. Honestly, a really good IEM. I think the final decision for acquiring it or not will be down to are you willing to spend the money that it costs or not? So what I suggest is, if possible, if you live in a part of the world that allows you to actually have the ability to listen to it, please go listen. Take the songs that you like listening to, take your own source and listen, compare it. If that's the thing that I always try and say. And for a lot of people, fortunately, especially those living in Asia, they are lucky enough to have stores where they can, I mean, in Japan, for example, I would love to be able to have access to the stores like they have in Japan. I would save a hell of a lot of money, I can tell you that much. And that's it, guys. As always, like and subscribe. Any questions, feel free to ask me, and I'll do my best to answer as quickly as possible. You take care now. Bye bye.